and you will ask, what will you do when they find me? Don't be scared of yourself.
Hi, I'm Dawn.
And I'm Ashley.
We would like to welcome you to the Work It, You Are Worth It podcast.
Where two friends sit around and talk about healing, growth, and healthy relationships.
Hey, Ashley.
Hey, Dawn, how are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm great. It is a beautiful day here, and I had a great night's sleep, so I'm feeling really good this morning.
Good. So time changed last night, and I'm not feeling it yet, but I usually don't feel it the day of. I'll feel it probably like Tuesday or Wednesday, and I'll be just like, oh God, I need this week to be over.
Yes, by Wednesday, I will be exhausted and like, this has been the longest week ever, all because of the time change.
Yep. I actually have to be at Moffitt in the morning at 7:30 for an MRI. And I'm like, so I was thinking, oh my God, that's 6:30. That's 6:30.
Right? Like, I'm going to have to be out of the house by 6?
Oh my God, yes. So...
yeah, like I usually get up at 5. So tomorrow morning I'll be getting up at 4 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, so yucky.
Yeah, it is yucky, but it's all right. I mean, I always say, well, I should be used to it. No, it's just it's a hard transition. But like I said, I won't feel it until probably Wednesday, and I'll be
I was
done.
actually listening to a news thing this morning where they were saying that there is no getting used to this. Our bodies do not adjust to the time change, and our natural body rhythm is regular time, standard time. So every time we do daylight savings, our bodies get spun into the natural rhythm being thrown off, even though it's only an hour.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought so.
Oh.
So I have this story.
Yeah.
There's this thing that happened the other day, and I'm not quite sure how I feel about it. So there was a situation where one of the machines I needed at work was broken. And this machine was very, very important to the job that my team was doing and to the job that the rest of the people I work with were doing. And on the very first day that this machine was broken, I called the company to see if I could get it fixed. Unfortunately, I did not have the admin privileges to fix it. So I went and asked several people who had the privileges to fix it. One of them were out sick for 2 days. The other was very, very busy, and the other had other projects that they were working on. So after about 4 days of this machine being down, which was stopping us, right? Stuff was piling up because we can't put anything away without the machine. We can't do our job without this machine. We can, but it slows it way, way down. So after 4 days of this machine not working, I finally walked up to one of the guys who had the privileges to fix it, the access, and I did what one of the other workers called the pretty girl beg. So I put my hand on his shoulder and I made direct eye contact, and I made sure that my body language exuded sexuality. And I, as sweetly and nicely, asked him to make the phone call as sweetly and nicely as I possibly could. And not just sweetly and nicely, but extremely sexually also. I made sure that my body language was exuding sexuality. I have absolutely no interest in this person, sexually, romantically, at all whatsoever. Part of me feels accomplished, like, okay, whatever. I had to get it done. I needed this machine fixed. It was accomplished. The larger part of me is very irritated by the fact that had they simply listened to me on the first day, this machine would have been fixed. And instead, I guess I didn't have to. I didn't have to go that route. Instead, I chose to go the route of using using my body as a tool, using my looks as a tool. I guess I don't know how to say it.
Sorry, I was hitting the wrong button. Some people back in the day would call those your womanly wiles,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, the whatever the magical ability that the woman has when she can exude that, right? I think everyone
Turn
knows
it
what
on.
it,
Yeah.
right. I think everyone knows what it is that I'm explaining, right? That sexuality that we
Yeah.
just can exude to a man or whoever it is that we're attracted to or using or need something from. God, that sounds so terrible. I'm not attracted to him at all. And I wasn't using him. I mean, I guess I was, but it was mostly his job. I was convincing him to do his job. I don't know.
Okay, so let's get the first part of it out of the way. So this situation, I'm not saying anything I say going forward in this. I am not supporting. I support women being able to be equal. I support women. We should not have to take this path to get anything accomplished.
Right. Like it took 4 days before I finally did this.
Yes.
Like I called the company. I talked to my boss. I asked my boss to talk to their boss. I talked to the IT person. I talked to the other manager that had access to fix it. I talked to the other person. Like we did everything we could between myself, my team, and the other employees to try to get this piece of machinery fixed until it finally got to the point where it was like, okay, I do know one thing that will work, but I really don't want to do it.
And I think we know that, I'm saying I know that it is, right, you were manipulating, I've manipulated, right, that is what.
Oh, that was manipulation, intentional, without a shadow of a doubt. It was pre-thought out, it was premeditated, it was examined, that was without a shadow of a doubt manipulation.
Right. Women should not have to get, and I'm going to stay on this for just a minute because I really want to make it clear that I am not supporting what you did from a place of women's equality. Because this is why, and a prime example of why women's equality still struggles. That's what I'm going to say that about it. I'm not going to say it was the right thing to do, right, for the greater purposes of women's equality. However, I will say this. Now we'll get into this side of it.
Well, hold on before you get into the other side
Okay.
of it. Let's talk about that for a second.
Okay.
So, in your mind, in your opinion, your perception, what would have been the way to handle that would have been for the greater good of the women's society?
I think it could have went, right, I know you went to, and we briefly had this conversation, so I know you went to your supervisor, and your supervisor didn't respond in a effective manner.
Yeah, I mean, they talked to their supervisor and they talked to the other person, but their hands were kind of tied. I kind of feel like there was nothing that they could really do.
Right. Okay. So I think, right, it's pushing would be maybe push and have a conversation with the appropriate parties of how do I get access? How can I, if this is my responsibility and my department, I should be able to pick up the phone and get things in my department fixed. How do we make that happen? I think, right, there's also a place of, okay, I'm sorry, my printer's down. I have notified everyone of this and it's not being fixed. Nothing can go out. I'm sorry. Until this is fixed, nothing can go out, and you just sit back and let it be. That's hard to do because of Now you have downtime, and now we're getting behind on work. But I think that's also what people have to understand, right? That's where you have to, like, you might not be important to you right now, but I'm going to show you how important it is, right? Now we're like, your inventory is down, right?
Right. So I considered that. I did consider that. And I kind of decided that with everything else that was going on, that was not an appropriate solution, because it would have just rolled into the week and we would have continued to be down, and then it would have made more work for everybody afterwards.
And it would have, but I think that's kind of part of the whole process of, right, if I'm going to not use my sexuality, my femininity, right? What do I have to do? Well, what would a man do? Well, let's go that route. What would a man do in that moment? Do you think he's gonna come up and rub on you to get you to do it?
I don't think so, but I couldn't, I mean.
I'm not a man either, but I'm gonna go with you. I wouldn't think so. So what would they do to get it fixed, right? They're just gonna say, fuck it, it's broke. And there's not a damn thing I can do. And when people ask, sorry, I've told you.
I feel like I'm being very codependent on my job in this moment, because just the thought of doing that gives me anxiety, and my next response to, like, I want to get defensive, right? I can feel myself. No, and you're not coming at me at all. I asked the question, right? But, like, I can feel myself. So I think that's a sign to me that I am being kind of codependent, because my response wants to be, well, but that would make me fail. Right? That would make me fail. I wouldn't be able to complete my task if I did that, and therefore I would fail.
How does that make you fail? I guess I'm going to ask this question because, anyways, how does that make you a failure? And I get it, because I would feel the same way. So that's the question. Like, I want to
Right. So
that.
Because I would not be able to complete my responsibility, my tasks that I have been handed would not be getting completed. Therefore, I would be failing.
But if you don't have the resources to be, and I don't want to say successful, I'm going to say just to flat out do your job.
I've never had the resources in my entire life.
So how do you go about getting the resources for what you need to be successful? And I think in this situation, you exercised all of your options.
Except just letting it not work.
Right.
Right? That was the next step. It was either step back and say, okay, the machine's broke and it's not going to go through, or find a way to fix the machine. And
right.
I had exercised every other option to get this machine fixed except that one.
And I bet that would have gotten, if the minute you tell one person, I'm sorry, nothing can go out. Nothing can,
I did.
Right? You do that enough times, people are going to get that fixed.
We did it for 4 days.
Right?
I wasn't, that was.
But I bet parts went out. I bet you guys found a workaround to let
We
parts.
always did, of course, because I don't fail.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Right? There's no workaround. I don't have a printer. I cannot distribute this.
We were printing the labels on pieces of paper and taping it on there.
Right? No. And I'm not saying that a workaround, hey, the machine's down, service guys are on their way. Right? That's different. This is, you just needed an initial phone call to be made.
It was basically what I feel like this ended up being is everybody was too busy to make, so there was one person that was working on this, and that person was actually trying to fix it, but that person refused to make the phone call until I asked in that manner. I had said something about the phone call multiple times beforehand and told them that I had tried to call, and they still, I don't know why. I can only assume that they didn't believe me. They went and tried to call other people, and they tried to do other ways to fix it, but they couldn't get it. And so when I did the pretty girl beg, as one of my coworkers called it, They made the phone call to the person I asked them to make the phone call to, and the machine got fixed.
Yeah. So let's go back real quick to your not feeling good enough, or like feeling like a failure. That's the wording you used.
Right, I won't fail, right?
You
That's
won't
my
fail.
big thing is, and I say that at work all the time. Even when
Guess how do you tie this machine being down? You have notified the appropriate individuals that this is down, and they are not proceeding with getting it fixed. How does that make you fail?
it doesn't. That's the thing that I was just saying too, right? I realize as we're talking about this right now that in that moment when I decided that I couldn't let it fail and I needed to manipulate this person, in that moment, I was being codependent. I was being extremely, and I did not realize it through this entire conversation, this entire week, until just now when we talked about the appropriate way, what would have helped women's society. That was when I realized, because it gave me anxiety just thinking about allowing it to not work, allowing this project to fail, allowing the day-to-day to fail. Gives me, just thinking about it gives me anxiety, even if it's completely out of my control.
Right, and what basically we're saying is, right, you have assigned your worth on something outside of you.
Absolutely, without a doubt. How my boss handed me a project and it was very, very difficult, if not almost impossible, to get it the way it needed to be. And I looked at her and I said, listen, I don't like it and I don't appreciate it, but I'll make it happen. I don't fail. That I say that at work all the time. I don't fail.
Let me ask you, what would you tell Cam?
It's practice. There's no such thing as failure. There's no such thing as failure. If we are learning how to do something, if we are doing something and we mess up, it's only failure if you don't get up and try again. As long as you get up and try again, it's just practice. That's what I tell her all the time. That's what I tell anybody who I hear use the word failure. There's no such thing as failure. It is only practice. But yet, I am the first to say, I don't fail. I will do whatever it takes, whatever is within my power to do to make sure that I don't fail. Now, I might fall, but I'll get right back up.
Well, you'll pop back up and you'll get so quickly composed, and that composure, and if you're anything like me, right, in that I use that fall to propel me even farther ahead.
Absolutely, yes.
I think there's the and it's so funny because it's like what we thought we were going to talk about. It's ending up here somewhere else.
Isn't that crazy? It always does.
Right. I think that's one of the things, right. It's knowing our words, and right, to say, I will not fail, right. You've already set yourself up into a lie, right. You've already set yourself up. Like you're just saying those words, I will not fail, is setting yourself up for failure.
I don't know if I can agree with that, because I think saying I don't fail is not the same as saying I never fall. I am not saying I am perfect. I am not saying I will always do it perfectly. I am saying I will not just give up. I will continue to get up. I will continue to try. I will do every single thing in my power that I can to be as successful as I possibly can be. I'm not saying I don't fall down.
I heard something in there with what you just said. I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna pick myself up, and I'm gonna keep working, and I'm gonna do everything in my power to, get it done, whatever. And what like in this situation, that's not
healthy.
Well, yeah, but right, I think everyone, we all have a capacity of our own power, right? You didn't just do, I'm going to do what I can do within my power, right?
Absolutely correct.
You did way more than than your own power.
I picked up I got into somebody else's lane and I started doing their job.
Exactly.
At the same time as trying to do my own.
And you didn't just sacrifice yourself. You pulled in other people and sacrificed them. Because Ashley doesn't fail.
I get what you're saying. In this situation, it worked out, luckily, in a very good way.
Right, but that's not what
but
we're
I get
talking
it.
about.
Right, I get exactly what you're saying. Right, I mean, to intentionally manipulate someone to do something that I want them to do, no matter the intention behind it, right? No, it doesn't matter if it's for the good of everyone involved. It doesn't matter if it's not going to hurt anyone. This situation, we're talking about a printer and putting our hand on someone's shoulder, right? We're not talking about having sex with someone. We're not talking about buying a house. We're not talking, right? This is something so little and it's not going to hurt anyone. And yet, it's still extremely important to be cognizant of the intentions behind it and the manipulation and the authentic, am I doing this in a way which is best for me and respectful of them, safe for me and respectful of them?
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think if I answer that question on this situation, the answer would be no, it is not safe for me, and no, it's not respectful of them. And even though it doesn't hurt anybody, it wasn't the best decision.
But it did hurt somebody.
It hurt me.
Right?
For a split second. I felt bad about it for a split second.
But Ashley, even if it's a split second, you still hurt yourself and justified it.
You're right. And
right?
clearly we're talking about it this morning, so it was more than a split second, clearly.
Right? That was the next thing I was going to say, right? But, right, that's the thing. You're like, oh, you're right, just dismissing, oh, it was just a second, it's fine. No, hurting myself even for a split second is not loving myself. Right? I have to love myself all the time, fully. Not, oh, I love myself 99% of the time. Right?
Right, I think in this situation, that's exactly what you're saying, right? Is I made a conscious choice to set aside myself for the good of everyone else. I did. Mm-hmm. And I thought about it before I did it. And I said, oh, that's so dirty. I don't want to do the pretty girl bag. I didn't use those words, but I like those words. I don't want to do the pretty girl bag. I don't like that. And I thought about it and I was like, yeah, but it's going to resolve all of the issues for all these other 20 people who are dealing with this frustration, and it's going to fix this, and it's... And you are correct. I did dismiss it completely. I did not pay any attention to myself. I was totally inconsiderate of how I felt about what I was going to do in order to get what I thought needed done.
Because when you were just saying all of that, like I was considering, it was all about other people. Very, like there was just a minute moment where you talked about yourself.
And in that moment when I made that decision, that's how it was.
Yeah. So how do, like, right, you need to turn this around to like what, right? And the situation should have been, how do I feel about this? Oh, I don't, this just feel, I don't, this feels yucky. I understand it will be effective. And I think that's the thing. My whole entire life has been about other people and not considering myself, right? Oh, what would the other person think? How would the other person feel? What will this do for them? And what I've done over time is shown myself and trained myself that I'm not valuable. And I think that's part of, right, I can't continue and I can't grow and realize how valuable I am and be true to myself and at the same time have these moments where, it's not going to kill me. So I'll just, it'll be fine. Right? I can't get to where I want to be.
I disagree with that.
Those moments. Why?
I disagree with that. Because nobody is perfect. And even in that moment, I see progress because I actually did consider myself. I didn't choose myself, right? I didn't put myself first. I did not choose myself, but I considered it, which is a hell of a lot more than I would have done 2 or 3 or 4 years ago.
Agreed.
And growth is not linear, right? Healing is not perfect. It is not a straight upward line. Sometimes we take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, and then we have to take those same 2 steps forward, but that's what we need in order to concrete it into us. And I think that part of growth and recovery is being able to say, I didn't do it perfectly, and I see now where I could have done it differently, and I also see now where I will do it differently next time, and I did it way better this time than I did in the past.
And I agree with you on all of that. Actually, I mean, I do. And I think this situation was, right, I make mistakes. I am human. I make these mistakes, I reflect on these mistakes, and I grow. 100% agree with you on that as well. I think one of the things that were for me that I'm hearing is you consciously made a choice to harm yourself for other people. And that's what I'm saying, is that's not, at the end of the day, that is not the best thing for me, right? I've consciously chosen.
Oh, it's not the best thing, for sure.
Yeah. That's because, again, that's what's gotten me here. And right, I'm not going to complain about where I'm at because I love where I'm at in my life. But, because I do love the way where I'm at in my life. And I have to know what got me here. And consciously choosing myself or to sacrifice myself for others is one of those ways.
I think subconsciously choosing to sacrifice myself for others is the way. I think sometimes a conscious effort, and I don't think this situation was it. Let me preface this by saying I do not think this situation, after discussing it and reflecting on it further, I don't necessarily think I handled it the best way. I'm not disappointed or upset with how I handled it, but I do see other ways in which I could have handled it now. With that being said, I do think that in some situations, considering and making an honest and authentic decision to put someone else first or put other people first, I do think that that is healthy in some situations and can be healthy.
I think there's more to it because yes, to a point, I agree with you, but I'm working on that. That's one of the things I'm really, really trying to work on lately, and I feel like there's that underlying where that fine line, I guess, that fine line of how I'm choosing others and how I'm putting others first, that I have to be very aware of, because it's really easy to put people first before me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's being a sacrifice, allowing myself to be a sacrifice is much, much easier than allowing someone else to be a sacrifice.
You know, something popped in my head, and I was telling myself a story about the words you were going to choose. It was easier to sacrifice yourself for other people not to fail. That's what I was kind of heard what you were going to say.
That's kind of what I was, in a way, yes. It's easier to sacrifice sometimes choosing to sacrifice myself so others can succeed, so others can win.
So let's take this someplace really close to home for both of us. Our children. I have been sacrificing myself, which as a mother, my kids became my priority. However, I sacrificed myself so my kids would not fail.
I don't like that word for that. I don't think I made a sacrifice. I think that I chose a priority and my children were my priority. I think our mindset a lot of times determines whether or not it's a sacrifice, right? I wanted to travel. I wanted to spend my 20s just traveling the United States and exploring. I got pregnant at 18. I had a child at 18. I had my second child at 21. I did not spend my 20s traveling. And I don't think I sacrificed that. I think I made
that is not what I'm talking about when I'm not talking about that from that kind of standpoint, because I agree with you. And that's where I kind of was saying, like, right, I signed up to be a mother and I wanted to right. I'm talking about the in-between parts of it, where if this is the one that popped in my head. Dylan would do these projects for school, and he would just do it kind of half-assed. And of course, then I took over and I stressed about it, and I would just obsess about it and stress about it. And by the time it was done, that project was perfection. He got an A on that. You know, he'd get an A on it because, right, you figure an adult's doing this project that has been in the workforce and knows how to put a presentation together, and like, oh, you want me to do a PowerPoint for you? No problem. I'll throw a PowerPoint and everybody's going to be impressed because it's going to do all these fancy things, blah, blah, blah. And what I did was I sacrificed myself, right? I'd get off work 6, 7 o'clock at night. I'd work and stress about this project, yell at him for not participating, not helping, not supporting me, right? Because this is his project. This is your project and you should be out here, right? And I was the one that was sacrificing myself and taking care of myself. But I wasn't teaching him that hard work pays off. I was teaching him not to fail, right? That your best isn't good enough, right? Because if I said that to him, and I really believe that, whatever he came up with would have been good enough. But I was telling him, what you come up with isn't going to be good enough, so I need to do it because I'll do it better. I was teaching him not to fail. And the only reason I know this is because this is something he has said to me, right? With his own recovery work. And I didn't realize it from that place, right? I can't fail. My kids can't fail. But what I was teaching them was that you can't fail. That's what I was teaching him. That's what I was teaching him. You can't fail. Instead of, hey, you know what? I did my best. The more I put into this, the better it'll be. If I only put in this, well, then this is what it's going to be. But I know nowhere in there am I a failure.
Yeah. I mean, I see that. I definitely see that.
And I
now, the sacrifice part of that you're talking about, though, right?
Yeah. Probably not the best choice of words.
I see Dylan's side of that, and I understand 100% with what he was saying, and I agree with that. And the way you describe doing that project or doing a school project, it absolutely sounds like a sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying, is I think our mindset determines what is a priority and what is a sacrifice. And the reason I say that, my story, right? So talking about kids' school projects, I have 3 children. I'm a single parent. Have always worked full-time and then some. I myself have had several school projects with my children.
Damn school projects.
And I get excited about them. And I go out and I spend money and I get the best supplies and all the best materials, and we get the poster board or whatever they need. And then we sit down at the table, and every night for an entire week, we spend one-on-one time, just me and that kid, building and being creative. And a lot of times we did hands-on dioramas or poster board where you draw things and you add the little words and paragraphs. And it never, yes, I was coming home from work and going to the store and getting the materials and sitting down and doing the project. And yes, there was fighting to get back at the table and focus. And yes, there was, are you giving your best? You need to pay attention. And yeah, all of that was there. As you describe your story, I hear all of that in myself. And as I look back and I think about it, it never felt like a sacrifice. It always felt like an exciting thing to do, even with the stress of it, even with the negatives that go along with those damn school projects. I always got excited about it. I still do. I look forward to my 12-year-old's next school project so that we can build something together.
And I actually get what you're saying, because I guess before Dylan's recovery, I would have felt this kind of the same way. But when his recovery and being open to seeing his perspective on things, and I think that's one of the things that's what I love about having my kid full on in recovery as well. And right in codependent in CODA recovery, because I'm realizing where I was a great mom. I'm not even going to say I wasn't a great mom. I was a great mom. I did everything I could and did the best I could with what I knew to be a good mom, and I did. My kids are amazing. However, I also get to hear his side of it and his perspective of it that I didn't get to hear. Right? It's this very unique gift I feel like I've been given with that, because now it's not like he doesn't sit down and say, well, Mom, this just isn't right. It's these passing, fleeting moments where I'll say something and he'll be like, ba. I'll be like, oh. And I get to take it home and I get to reflect on it or whatever. Did you remember this? And I don't know if I shared this. Probably did. I know I probably shared it on the meeting. The one time he was like, do you remember that time we were in the car and I said Grandma was my favorite and you lost it on me? He's like, you went crazy on me.
I don't remember hearing this.
Oh, this just happened. This happened probably a couple weeks ago, actually.
I may have been out of town for that meeting. I know I missed a meeting a couple of weeks ago, but I haven't heard this yet.
Okay. So, he broke up with his girlfriend, the one that's on and off. And anyways, and during a conversation they were having, he's like, he had a memory, and he calls me and he's like, do you remember the time that I was in the car at your job and we were driving home and I said to you that Grandma was my favorite person? And I don't remember the actual being in the car, him saying it. However, I do know and remember always wanting to be my kid's favorite person.
Do you remember feeling insecure or jealous that you
Yes.
weren't when
Yes.
he was
Oh,
little?
100%. So that's why I knew this was true. It wasn't that I remember the actual moment. I know, like, all those feelings, like the feelings came back. Like, you know what I mean? You like, you don't remember.
Absolutely.
So they came back. Woof. And I was like, and I said to him, I said, well, I don't remember the situation, but I do know me, and I do know me pre-recovery, and that I can comfortably say I probably did, and it very much was me feeling less than, right? If I am not your favorite person, I was less than. Instead of realizing you had important people in your life that you loved, and comparing myself to your grandma who doesn't have any responsibility for you and gets to be full on grandma mode and give you whatever
Heck
you
yeah.
want. Right? Of course, my mom, his grandma, I'm not even going to say my mom, right? And I don't want to classify it that way because, of course, his grandma was his number one person in his life. My grandma was my number one person in my life.
I hope that I am my granddaughter's number one person.
Right?
And it's not that you're it's not the number one person. It's the favorite. It's the one I
Yes.
can go to when I want candy. It's the one I can go to when my feelings are hurt. It's the one I can go to when I'm mad at my mom. It's the one that no matter what happens, they will have my back always. And what else is a grandparent for?
Exactly. Like, I still, now in recovery and like when recovery brain, like I'm like, man, how did I not get that? But I couldn't
Yeah.
get that because it was me and my codependency of not feeling enough.
Well, I can imagine if one of my children came to me and told me that their grandparent was their favorite. Like, I can imagine feeling not good enough in that moment also. And it has nothing to do with the grandparent. It also has nothing to do with the child.
Right? It's all about me. And that does not in a like night. It's not all about me, or it's that in that moment. That's what I'm hearing. You're not telling me you like your favorite person is grandma. What you're telling me is
I'm not your favorite person.
Exactly.
Right? You're not telling me how much you love this other person. That leads me, something I always say, giving to one does not take away from the other. Right? His grandma being his person does not mean you're not also his person. That's something that a lot of people struggle with, that I have struggled with for a long time. And I think it's important to say giving to one does not take away from the other.
So Colin, my kids are very much so this is a big thing for them, and I'm slowly realize like they play this. There's this game they play with each other, and they have actually played this game with each other their entire lives of who's the favorite. And it's now it's just this complete joke, and right, I get these birthday cards when and they'll have the whole one side might say from your favorite, and they write out favorite a billion times, son. And of course they know, like, it's now a joke, like, right, you're my favorite, like, you're both my favorites, like, I can't, now that they're older, I can explain to them, right, Dylan will always have this place in my heart because he's the one that made me a mom. He made me a mom, right? The one thing I wanted to be in the world was a mom, and he gave that to me. He made me a mom. He was the first person to call me mom. Colin's special because he's my baby. I'm never going to have another baby. He's my last child, right? There's a difference with them. And they're both my favorites. And so they'll play this, and it's not from an unhealthy place. Like, it is a joke we have, and we play with it a little bit. But Colin kind of had the same discussion because having these whole favorite things, he went through that phase of, like, dad's my favorite person. Grandma's then, like, or, the second, or it was either grandma was first and his dad was second. With him, it was a whole different thing. Right? With Dylan, I would get angry and I'd be mad and I'd be jealous and I would feel not good enough. With Colin, it became this place of, yeah, probably it is right now. And I was like 5th on the list. Which didn't matter, because what I realized was, yeah, those people are your favorite people, but I'm not meant to be your favorite person. I'm your mom.
It's a whole different ball game.
Right? I have to be the bad guy. I'm not the dad that shows up once every blue moon and calls you, every day, right? And doesn't have to give you any money, and he doesn't have to be responsible for you. He just does whatever. Of course he's your favorite person. Right? I get the best of it. Right? I get to shape you.
I always say that the person they take the things out on the most is the one they love the most. And a lot of times that ends up being mom.
Yep.
It's different for every family, right?
A
lot of times moms are those people.
You and I are in this kind of a situation where we are just the key person in our kids' lives with dads.
I think,
so it's understandable where we're both on that.
I think it's a whole different relationship, though, right? Like, if you were to ask my kids who their favorite person is, I don't think I would be on the top of that list.
Right?
But I don't think that I'm even considered on that list. Yeah. I think mom has her own whole entire thing that is completely different from everybody else. And it doesn't necessarily have to be mom, right? If dad is the one raising the kid that's home all the time, maybe it's dad, or if grandma or auntie or whoever. I think it's that person who is there all the time, that one that tends to get that insecure, jealous feeling of, I wish I was your favorite. I think that person has their own category.
They're the go-to.
Right. They're the one that the kid doesn't even think about because they're always there.
Yeah.
And I take pride in being that for my kids. Like, I don't want them to have to consider my feelings before they do what's best for them, because I want them to know that I will always be here and love them no matter what.
And I think that's with the difference between Dylan and Colin, right? Being a 10-year age difference, right? I got to do things a little differently. With Dylan, I took it very personal, and not being a favorite mattered. But what I didn't realize...
You were very insecure in your mothering with Dylan.
Yes, I was. Right? That's something that has just gotten better in the last 5-6 years.
But with Colin, you were way more confident.
Right. Because, come on. I was trying to figure shit out with Dylan. Like, I fucked everything up, right? Because he was my first. I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
So, of course, when I'm more confident, I'm not as jealous and insecure.
Right. And I realized, and like what you were saying, it's like with Colin, I realized I'm the go-to. I am the constant. That's what I am. That doesn't make me a favorite. I'm the constant in their lives. I am the go-to. When they fall, I'm the one they call. When they have success, I'm the one they call. When they are proud of themselves, I'm the one they call. When they're struggling, I'm the one they call. I
may not be the favorite, but the only reason I'm not the favorite is because I'm the go-to.
Yeah.
Right? It's like when I consider what I love the most, I don't consider my dogs because they're I love them. That's just, I don't even consider it. They're just there.
Right?
Right, when you consider your family, when you think about your family and the people you love, Bo isn't top on that list.
No.
But you damn sure love him. He's probably your favorite without considering it or thinking about it, right? I know
Probably, yeah.
Right? If I don't go too deep into it, I could probably tell you my dogs are my favorite.
They don't talk, well, I guess they do.
But they're the least considered.
Yeah.
That's how I picture it. It's crazy what's occurring to me right now. That's how I picture it with my children. That's how I picture parents are. And what's occurring to me as I say this is yet again how my mindset determines how I feel. If I'm stuck in the mindset of I am not good enough, then when someone doesn't consider me, I feel jealous and insecure.
Hey, I want to take this full circle for a second.
Okay.
Oh, are you there? I lost you.
No, can you hear me? I hear you.
Okay, I can hear you now. Sorry, something must have just dropped and then came back.
Okay. Take it full circle. Go ahead.
I got to remember what I was going to say.
If I am feeling not good enough, then I will be insecure and jealous.
Right, and what you should have said or been, what you should kind of have to be is, right, you were insecure in what you could get done, so you went to this route of insecurity.
Absolutely. I see what you're saying, right? I was feeling insecure about being successful, and so I acted in a manner in which I wasn't proud of, right? So, yeah, no, I see what you're saying completely. So opposite, yeah, no, right? So opposite side of that, had I been feeling secure and confident and feeling good enough, then I wouldn't have acted in a insecure manner, and I wouldn't have used the tool that I used.
Right.
It all comes back to whether or not we feel good enough.
And you think about, and we've had these conversations enough times, what did you do as a little girl?
I mean, right, I just used whatever tool would work in the moment.
Yeah. And we both have talked about, right, being able to use our, and I don't mean this in a sexual way. I'm not saying that as a little girl. I'm right, but right, I could pout.
Right.
I could
smile and look innocent. Please, Daddy.
Please, right? Like I would use those tools.
And hell, let's be realistic. At 10, I knew that I had boobs. And at 10, I knew that if I talked in a sexual way, I would get the things that I wanted. And
oh, yeah.
Maybe not sexual, like talking about body parts, but like flirtatious, like innuendos.
Yep. And I think that's exactly what you did recently with this work situation. You use the exact same tool you've been using your entire life because it's been very successful. And I think the point of it is right, that tool, which still serves me well, because men are men.
It definitely worked. I mean, it does serve well when it's needed. But is it ever really needed?
Is it the best thing for you?
Right. Is it ever really needed? If it's not what I want, if it's not what I like, if it doesn't feel good, right? Like, I spent 4 days before I did this because I didn't want to do it.
And right there should have been and I think that's where I was saying earlier, a conscious decision. You made a conscious decision to put your feelings aside.
I did. I definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, I did. I chose to sacrifice myself because it was a small sacrifice in my mind in order to get done what I felt needed done.
The problem with that small sacrifice, go back 30 years.
And that's how it all started.
That small sacrifice turned into another small sacrifice, which turned into another small sacrifice. And now you're still in that same pattern of, oh, it's just a small sacrifice. I am not a small sacrifice.
Right. Absolutely. No, I see that now. I get it and agree 100%.
Now, I'm going to say this because I said there was a couple of things I wanted to say with this. And right, I did the whole women's, like we got to blah, 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 and then we did this part. I'm also going to say I've worked in construction. I've worked in a warehouse. All rules are off the table in that. It's a whole different, if you have not, to the listeners, worked in a warehouse construction environment, it's a whole different ballgame. And I personally know I wear masks at work.
It is a much different environment than corporate America.
Yes.
And yes, there's a certain persona that people have in a warehouse or a construction site or hell, there's a certain persona in a cook in a kitchen or a teacher in a school, and we kind of fit into that persona when we do those jobs.
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple of options as a female in those environments. I can be the tough, one of the guys, right? I'm thinking of that kind of person. And that's the way they're going to look at me, as one of the guys. Or I can go the other extreme, and I can be the one that walks around in heels and short skirts and totally use my sexuality to get everything on anything I want. And then there's this middle ground where I can't be this middle ground either. I can't be a feminine, strong woman in this man's world and get respect.
See, I try to walk that middle ground. I do. I try really, really hard to walk that middle ground. I do. Every now and then you have to go one way or the other, because that fine line sometimes just can't get the job done.
And that's where we, as a society, we have to do better. That it's okay for that woman, that middle ground, to be enough. I don't need to go one way or the other. I get to be authentically me in that middle ground, whatever that middle ground looks like for me. And it's okay. And I still get respected, and I get what I need.
Yeah, I mean, as you talk about the two polar extremes and the middle ground, like, there's people at work that I can actually picture literally the heels and the short skirts and the makeup and the sex sells on one end, and then I am one of the guys, I'm a dude, I'm right, very masculine at the other end. And then there's a lot of middle ground in between. And yeah,
everybody's
a lot of
middle ground
times
looks different.
But a lot of times you see one extreme or the other. There's not a whole lot of middle ground in America.
Because I don't think we right, I think that's when we talk about equality. That's the middle ground. Equality is the middle ground, that I can be in this middle ground and I can be okay and I can get what I need and deserve in that middle ground, and I don't have to go. When I have to go to one extreme or the other,
I don't think our society supports middle ground.
No, I don't either.
I think that middle ground that we're talking about is healthy recovery, right? It's emotional sobriety. And I don't think that the society in America supports a culture of loving independence.
We cannot be manipulated, and in politics and government, that they need us to be the high upper class, all of that. They need us to be one way or the other. They can't have us being strong and confident individuals, because we will challenge the way the things are done. And we can't have that.
Well, imagine if all of those extremes didn't count anymore and it was just the middle ground that counted. That, like, the numbers would be astounding. How much love there would be, how much connection and, like, unity. And, like, if we all stopped trying to be what everybody else thought we were, or everybody else thought we were supposed to be, or society thought we were supposed to be, and we were just ourselves in that middle ground, the left, the right, the back, the forth, the good, the evil, all of it, and just walk that middle ground where it felt right for us. God, the unity.
Just own it. Oh my God, just own it, man. And the support of each other, where that middle ground falls for you is okay. I don't need to be different because you're different.
Absolutely.
Or you're different than me. I get to be me, authentically me. And you're right. The unity, the peace, the
love. I could just picture it. It makes me so happy. I don't know why I'm just filled with, like, this warmth and this happiness right now as we talk about this. Because, like, if our society could just stop being left or right, good or evil, right or wrong, if we could just go to that middle and find that love, it would be such an amazing world.
And I have the power to make change by living in that middle ground.
Absolutely.
Well, Ashley, we were all over the place today, but man, this was a good one.
I enjoy it when we're all over the place. I feel like we have our best conversations then.
Me too. Me too. Yeah, that was a good one. Thank you for the topic. Thank you for sharing your situation and
Yeah, thanks for working through it with me, and thanks all the listeners for being there, and I hope everybody has a great week.
you too.
Bye.
Bye.
We would like to thank you for joining us on this journey of self-discovery. Visit the Work It website at workityouareworthit.com to submit your questions and topics for future episodes. And remember, work it because you are worth it.